Well, guys, I have to say, I am impressed. Midas Touch managed to score an exclusive one-on-one interview with Joe Biden, who you must remember is still currently president. You know, I feel like this might be the first step in a really good direction for the Democratic Party. I'm sure that the DNC does not throw their full support behind Biden like they once did these days, but I gotta say, if this is a sign of perhaps the party starting to recognize the value of these online left-wing media organizations and giving them the spotlight, then it's a good sign. You know, there was just as much of a chance that like Joe Biden would do an interview with like Hassan, right? Like, as much as Hassan calls Joe Biden Genocide Joe, he would take the interview with Joe in a heartbeat for the clout that it would provide. And so I'm glad to see that Joe is not doing this interview with someone like Hassan and is instead doing it with a group like Midas Touch, which absolutely deserves it more than him, you know? Like, Midas Touch has not been calling Joe Biden a genocider for the last 4 years and stoking hatred among progressives against the Democratic Party right before the election. So I'm glad we're not giving attention to people like Hassan. And Hassan is blacklisted from being at DNC events in the future as well. After he got kicked out of the DNC last time, he's never getting invited again.
Mr. President, you're going to be at the inauguration. Some union leaders and even some kind of rank and file workers ended up voting for the other guy. How do you square that? Do you think you reach a deal in Gaza before your term ends as you prepare to leave the White House? Any
Holy shit, it's going to be a real interview because it's Midas Touch. That's crazy.
other regrets that you have? Anything you wish you would have done different?
I want to get as much of this in as possible, honestly, so we're gonna speed it up just a little bit because I want to get as much of this interview watched as we can in this segment.
His rhetoric, what he's done, what he's threatened.
That's not America. That's not who that we are. We're not going away. I'm not going away.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch
Based.
Network, reporting from the Roosevelt Room in the West Wing of the White House. That's right. We have a very special interview for you today with President Joseph Biden. We will talk about his time in the White House. We will talk about his legacy. We will talk about what he intends to do in the future. We will talk about what is NATO, our NATO allies, saying to him. We will address all of that and more on the Midas Touch Network.
Mr. President, I want to thank you for this interview today. And we're here in the Roosevelt.
Glad I managed to actually catch your stream live. YouTube hasn't notified me at all, not even once, and I have all notifs turned on. And for this for your channel, yeah, I know. Someone comes into stream, or multiple people come in every stream to tell me that YouTube doesn't tell them I go live or anything. YouTube really likes my uploads, like my video uploads, and pushes them pretty hard, so my videos do really well. But in terms of my streams, they always are capped around 300 to 400 viewers outside of special scenarios because YouTube will only give my streams about 3,000 impressions. Like not a lot. Like, my stream doesn't get a lot of impressions. Like, YouTube caps the amount that they'll get, which is how many people see my stream recommended. My videos will get sometimes hundreds of thousands of impressions in comparison, you know, for like an idea of like how it is. But the YouTube stream and video algorithm are different. So there's like an alternate universe where my streams pop off with like thousands of concurrent viewers, but my videos only get a few thousand views, right? Because they're totally different algorithms. And sometimes one algorithm likes your stuff and the other algorithm doesn't. And in YouTube's streaming algorithm's case, they don't like my streams and don't push them even in my own subs. But my videos get pushed really hard and do really well. So, you know, that's just the situation, you know? Thanks for coming to the stream. I guess you found it regardless. That's why you got to be in the Discord and turn on notifications, because YouTube does not tell even like, I think, a percentage of my audience that I'm live. So yeah, I got to be in the Discord if you want to know.
Roosevelt Room right now in the West Wing of the White House. You have a few more weeks here in the White House. And so as you look back over the past 4 years, what do you believe are your biggest accomplishments that you're most proud of?
Well, when I ran, I said I was going to try to do 3 things. Restore some integrity to the office, bring back a sense of focus on the needs of ordinary people, and try to unite the country. And so that's what I've done. I've tried to do. In 4 years, we've accomplished a lot. I mean, it hadn't trickled down to every single person yet, but we're in a situation where we have the strongest economy in the world by any measure. For example, We made sure that we got ourselves in a situation where we wanted to get results immediately. So I started working on the things I thought were most consequential. How can we lead the world without having the best infrastructure in the world? The best ports, airports, et cetera.
The infrastructure
roads,
bill.
highways, transportation, electric connectivity. How can we lead the world?
Well, happily, that biggest infrastructure bill in U.S. history takes effect during Trump's presidency. So that's nice.
If we're not dealing with the single greatest threat to humanity, the emergence of climate change. We go above 1.5 degrees Celsius, we're in real trouble. Our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren are in real trouble. And if we can't move in the direction of seeing to it that we take care of the people who are most in need, for example, the idea that we charge so much for prescription drugs in America. I could take any one of you guys who have a prescription from any American drug company, put you in Air Force One and fly to any of 10 cities in the world. I get you the same exact drugs from a drugstore, quote unquote, in those countries that is 40, 60% less. The only protected entity was Medicare could not negotiate with drug companies. I also think it was really important.
It's so bizarre because, like, Joe's obviously always had his stutter, but as he gets older, he's even worse at public speaking, let's be real. And, like, you can tell he's still all there. Like, I've never liked the whole, like, Joe Biden's brain is melting thing because, like, you can tell he's still all there with what he's saying. Like, there is a full, coherent line of thought of a mostly healthy brain here. And you compare it to Trump, and there's no conversation whatsoever about Trump's mental capacity or fitness to be president. That has never been a real conversation. It's always been about how awful he is, which, granted, fair, but, like, Trump demonstrates more symptoms of literal dementia than Biden ever has on a daily basis, and there's no conversation about, like, Trump's age or his mental fitness to be president on either side. Trump is literally, like, 4 years younger than Biden, I think. 5 years younger than Biden, at the most. There's no conversation about Trump's age whatsoever. It's a complete double standard, but what's frustrating about it is that, like, even if, like I would be less frustrated about the double standard if it was at least true, right? Like, Biden looks and sounds like he's melting, but what he's saying is completely true. He's talking about right now, he could put you on Air Force One, fly you to like 10 cities off the top of his head, and you would be able to get outside of America, and you would be able to get any prescription you could imagine for 60 to 80% cheaper than you can in the US. Like, his line of thought is fully coherent there. He just stutters getting it out and mush mouths getting it out, and man, it's not a good look. Even if you're able to, like, tune into what he's saying and you get it, it's like, it's rough because it's like, man, you know he does a good job, but he doesn't sound like he can do a good job unless you know what he's talking about.
Important that we do something about, 1% of the population is defending 99% of us. And we weren't taking care of our veterans we had to. So that's why I work so hard to make sure we're in a situation where we provided for the opportunity for the veterans to be cared for and their families to be cared for. We fundamentally changed that.
Yep.
And we also moved in the direction of making sure that we're in a situation where we provide for opportunities in education and provide for opportunities.
I think it was called the, like, ACT Pact or something, or the PACT Act. I think it was the actual official name of it, was the financial support for veterans that he passed, the VA thing. That was huge. I remember I covered that.
To deal with the things that ordinary people have a shot of being able to do. And I guess maybe one of the big things we've done, we've attracted $1 trillion off the sidelines to be invested in America, buying American. And so, for example, we invented that little computer chip. We made it more sophisticated. Well, when we found out that corporations were exporting to manufacture those the cheapest labor around the world, but then guess what? When COVID hit and those outfits shut down because of illness in the Far East, well, guess what? We found out we need 300 to build an automobile. We found out so on and so forth. We were in real trouble, so I decided to change that and make sure we were part of the supply chain. We were the beginning of the supply chain.
Once again, my point stands about how, like, he's like talking about real shit and he's a good president, but God, does he sound like his brain's melting. He sounds like it. But what he's talking about right now is during his presidency, the U.S. was very ahead on computer chip manufacturing, and China has been trying to compete with us on that massively. And in order to avoid that, Biden took measures to, particularly because of COVID and U.S. manufacturing, of these computer chips dropping, he took measures to like fight against that, including surgically targeted tariffs. The computer chips he's referring to are specifically ones used in electric cars. Because the U.S. electric car industry under his presidency has been actually like the U.S. in terms of manufacturing is actually ahead when it comes to electric cars. The number 2 is China, and China wants desperately to pull ahead of us. If we can hold on to a like being number 1 in a certain industry that we already are number 1 in, then we might as well try. And so that's a case where surgically targeted tariffs that make it more expensive to buy foreign than American are useful because, let's be real, electric cars are not a needed purchase, right? Like, they're good. It's good to buy an electric car rather than a gas guzzler, but most people who are buying electric are not people who, like, a slightly higher price is going to stop them from buying electric, right? And so they make the foreign cars more expensive, and they made the American electric cars the cheaper option. And that obviously fed deeper into the already number 1, like securing the spot of the number 1 country for electric car industry. And we've held that because of Biden's actual smart application of tariffs, using tariffs how they're supposed to be used. And that's what he's talking about right now with how Americans want manufacturing brought home. And there are ways to do that. And there are industries where that's useful, such as the chips that were in electric cars. And you can put tariffs in place to do that surgically, and it'll improve the economy. But you can't just do the blanket tariffs that Trump is promising. It's going to nuke our economy.
And all that has resulted in real significant economic growth that hasn't yet gone to all the people because it takes time to get it up and running. But those are the things I focused on first.
People won't believe that, sadly. People genuinely think Biden was responsible for the rising prices in, like, grocery stores, right? Like, the inflation that the U.S. experienced wasn't American inflation. It was global inflation. The inflation of the U.S. experienced followed the inflation the world experienced. The whole economy got fucked by COVID, and then double fucked by Russia invading Ukraine. Massive oil and grain exporter, by the way. Huge trade partner with several countries that are very, very high up in the Western world, you know? So it was a big deal when Russia invaded Ukraine, especially in the wake of COVID. It caused a global economic crash, massive inflation. The only thing the president can do in response to global inflation like that is work with the Federal Reserve to try to adjust interest rates to mitigate the effect that Americans feel on their wallets. And of course, try to work to raise employment and drop unemployment. Try to raise pay. Try to, like, improve wages. These are ways you can respond to inflation and rising prices, but they aren't caused by the president. Like, Donald Trump might actually be one of the few he's going to be one of the few presidents outside of a handful of Republicans who went in with a plan for the economy that everyone was super optimistic about. Economists overwhelmingly say will destroy the economy. No one cares, though, because no one listens to those nerds. And then it happens. Our economy crashes. That's what's going to happen. And they will get it in their head that if the economy is in a bad place at any given time under any president, it's their fault. Just like, say, it was Bush's fault that we did trickle-down economics and then experienced a 2-year-long economic crash from 2007 to the end of 2008. And then, of course, took years to heal from it. Like, even in 2010, things were kind of tough. We really didn't see, like, the economy get close. I think the economy had fully recovered by 2012. I think by then, GDP growth, at least, if that's what you want to measure the economic recovery or growth of the country by, GDP growth had reached its point that it was in 2007 when the economy crashed in 2012, towards the end of Obama's first term. Took 4 years to undo the damage, at least as far as GDP growth is concerned, of Bush's economic policy. And so, yeah, people do have it in their minds now that, like, whoever is currently president at the end of their term, however the economy is representative of how their party and their ideology handles the economy. And it really hurt Bush and the Republicans hard enough that Obama landslide won basically twice in a row. But then Trump came along with his populist rhetoric and messaging, fucked everything. People wanted change and flocked to Biden in numbers never seen before or since. And then we put Harris as the front runner for the Democrats. Trump runs again on a populist message after a much weaker economy than he left office on due to, Biden not being able to, I guess, mitigate everything quick enough. And now we've got the perception that Biden ruined the economy. People see the expensive eggs and they say, thanks, Biden. Expensive gas, and they say, thanks, Biden, as if he has any effect on it.
First. And look, you mentioned all of these accomplishments that you just listed, and you focused on bottom.
All the ways, here's the frustrating thing. All the ways in which the president can improve the economy have no effect on prices. They don't affect, the president can't do anything that lowers the prices. The thing the president can do are things outside of that make the prices less of an issue. And that's what Biden did during his presidency. Record rises in wages, record low unemployment, record GDP growth. And by every measurable metric, the growth of the economy and the healing of the economy under Biden has been unprecedented. But the damage was so bad that a healing economy still felt like garbage. And the vibes are all that mattered. It's so frustrating. As someone who's autistically researched this shit over the last couple of years and been really, really tapped in to the policy positions of Trump and the actual things that Kamala and Biden were doing during their presidency, it's so frustrating to see people who could not be fucked to put in a fraction of the work. And it really isn't that much work, to be honest. I'm not bragging here. It's Google the current headlines every couple days in relation to what the current administration is doing, and check the White House website every once in a while for new updates. It's really not that much work to keep up with what the current administration has been doing to improve your life. People don't do that, though. They vote based on the vibes, and it's so frustrating. It's it's not that hard to just research this stuff and to know who you're voting for and what you're voting for. It's not that hard. I know it seems like it. Conceptually, it seems daunting and difficult, but it's really not. It's really not that hard.
Up, middle out economics to help workers. Infrastructure Act, Inflation Reduction Act created over 16 million jobs, more than any president. But here's the thing, though, and I really want to get your insight on.
But created jobs don't equal lower grocery prices. Yeah, people more jobs, lower unemployment, higher wages. That's all great. No one cares though if the prices haven't gone down. That's the thing. They don't care. And Biden could never unless Biden literally instituted a bill somehow, it would have to be through an executive action, I guess, if he can do this. He would have to pass a cap on the price of certain things, which has its own massive list of concerns as to why you don't want to do something like that.
Some union leaders and even some kind of rank and file workers ended up voting for the other guy with all of the benefits you delivered. How do you square that?
Well, not many did, by the way, number one. Number two, I think that it's hard to translate. I think the one thing that I should have spent more time talking about is these things are going to take time to be put in place. For example, when we decide that we're going to build a computer chip factory outside of Columbus, we're going to invest billions of dollars in the construction of that facility. Well, all the jobs are going to be created by the construction needs to do it. And then there's what they call fabs, these great big things, twice the size of football fields, where people are going to be making these computer chips. And guess what? The average salary is going to be $102,000. And you don't need a college degree. It's going to fundamentally change the community. But the problem is it's going to take time to get them up and going. The same way with almost all the stuff we've done. And so I think
one of the biggest focuses of Biden's economic repair plan was getting America to rapidly embrace new industries in the world of tech, because China has gotten ahead of us in a lot of ways by rapidly embracing tech and rapidly making themselves the country you go to for buying or manufacturing or procuring the resources, the raw materials for tech products. And that is the world now. That so much of the world economy is based on tech now. And so Biden, which granted is kind of funny because he's such an old man, was America, to get ahead and to grow our economy and to counter this global inflation needs to pull ahead in certain realms of manufacturing. We can't say take back the automotive industry as a whole and be the number one automotive manufacturing country in the world again. That's never going to happen. But hey, electric cars, microchips, these like tech related things, there's not really a global industry for these things yet. They're still emergent technologies, which means that the US or any country has the opportunity to seize the number one place in the market and hold that position if the policies are smart and the choices made are smart. And so that's what Biden focused on heavily during his presidency. And that's what he's talking about now, is how much the U.S. invested in creating jobs in the world of tech. Low skill, quote unquote, as they would call them, like not needing a college degree type jobs in the world of tech, which is, of course, what we've all been hoping for, right? Because automation scares people because, like, these manual labor jobs, for instance, or repetitive task jobs that are absolutely, you need people to be working them. They want to replace those jobs with robots. And obviously people without college educations that come from lower income situations are typically the ones who fill those jobs and thus would be losing the jobs they can access. So Biden introducing more jobs like that in industries that are modern and not being phased out by automation is really, really big. It's a really big deal. But people just don't care.
It's a failure to connect between what's happening to the economy as a whole and what's going to happen to the middle-class Americans. As a consequence of what we've done, it's going to take a little bit of time.
What are you going to do when the other guy, those out there bragging about accomplishments under you, the Medicare $2,000 cap, is going to kick in 2025, and he's going to be out there.
Yep, the infrastructure bill. Yeah, I love Biden's response. He knows. He's been thinking about it for a while. It's like, man, this motherfucker's going to take he's going to take all the credit for all this shit I've been doing because these bills don't get their full tax funding until midway through Trump's presidency. He's going to take all the credit for the infrastructure bill, the like all that shit. Oh, man. He knows. That's why he smiled. He's known this is going to happen for a while. Yeah, all I can do is scream. If I don't laugh, I'll scream.
What are you going to do when the other guy, those out there bragging about accomplishments under you, the Medicare $2,000 cap, is going to kick in 2025, and he's going to be out there saying, I did this. How's that going to make you feel when that happens?
Look, if it continues to benefit the American, look, I've invested more in red states than in blue states, all these programs we just talked about. And the reason for that was the red states didn't operate very well, and they really hurt their constituents. So those factories closed and the like. The fact is that I represent all of America, not just Democrats. And I think what it's going to do is going to bring the country more together than separate it. And for example, you already have folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others saying, don't.
Dude, man, I really think Biden could have won where Kamala lost. I get the whole, like, people were upset about his age and stuff, but man, like, I feel like you couldn't get Biden not talking about a situation. Like, you can't find a clip of Biden where he's engaging in some, like, meme thing or talking about, like the one time he talked about, like, something not related to his policy was the hairy legs lifeguard corn pop story. And everyone blew that up to try to make him look bad and make fun of him for it, because every other clip of him was either like a clip where they made it look like he was smelling someone's hair or a clip of him gaffing. Because if it wasn't one of those things, it would just be a clip of him talking about his amazing policies. And at the end of the day, like, there were, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like Biden's policies and his plans were a lot more known than Harris's. I think the biggest L of the Harris campaign was failing to get their plan and policies as disseminated as possible. It's actually surprising how many Harris supporters didn't know Harris's policies. Like, I get why they didn't, like, they voted for her, especially the women. Like, they don't want to lose their abortion rights under Trump. And that's enough of a wedge issue to do it. But, like, the idea that they would vote for Kamala Harris, and even they don't know her policies, much less the average American who voted for Trump. they didn't know her policies. A lot of them complain that she had no policies. How many times have you heard Kamala Harris has no policies? She just talks about coming from a middle-class home. How many times have you heard that from like normies, Republicans, just randos? Straight up accusing Harris of having no policies because her policy positions and her plans, regardless of how much she talked about it, were not disseminated enough. That is just the fact of the situation.
Eliminate the factory after talking about the proposal that we're going to build that was the worst idea anybody's ever had. She didn't vote for it. So I think there's going to be a bit of a comeuppance here, but the bottom line is I'm convinced that over time, the American public will respond to what is the intention of the party to try to help ordinary people. And the fundamental change I made, and I made a speech at Brookings Institution about it recently, was on the economy. The fact is that we had a long time this idea of trickle-down economics. Let the wealthy do very, very well. They'll have so much money, it'll trickle down on people's kitchen tables and coffee tables and the like, and everyone will benefit.
Bush.
I've never bought that theory. And so what I've decided to do was to change it to build the economy from the middle out and the bottom up.
Bush too.
Wealthy still do very well, but the middle class and working class people do much, much better. And that's exactly what's happening. And so I think the long-term prospects for the country are very good.
Let's talk about foreign policy. Our NATO allies, what are they saying to you right now? You know, Trump's out there threatening allies. Mexico, he's threatening Canada with tariffs. Obviously, NATO countries very concerned right now. Are we going to stand up to Putin in 2025 the way you did? What are they saying to you? And
Well,
what's
look,
your message?
For your audience, there's these various organizations like the G7, the leaders of 7 European nations and the like, G20, all these. And I've attended all this. The only advantage being the old guy in the presidency. I have more experience in this than anybody else does. And I've known all these folks. And one of the things that we've done was, they've said to me at the end of these meetings, oh, come on, you can't walk away from this. Our democracy depends on it. Well, they're concerned. And they're concerned whether Trump's going to do some of the foolhardy stuff he says he wants to do. These extreme tariffs, which are going to cost the American, taxing the American taxpayer, dealing with not supporting Ukraine by letting Russia have its way, moving in a direction where we walk away from. Look, I was able to expand NATO, expand it, not just maintain it, but bring it back and expand it. You know, Henry Kissinger called me 10 days before he passed away to say, Joe, not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over its shoulder at Russia with dread until now. Well, I was able to convince 2 countries, Sweden and a country with 800 miles.
All right, guys, I need you to imagine possibly the funniest thing ever right now. Stoned Joe Biden. Joe Biden after taking an indica blinker. Couch-locked Joe Biden. I need you to imagine, like, you take him as he is now, and you add weed to the equation, and like a real strong couch-locking indica, and he takes a blinker. Like, then you have him talk about this. You do the interview. I need to see that. Have him take like a 100 milligram edible. Yes. I need to see Biden on a 100 milligram edible. That shit would go crazy. I hope one day we get a presidential candidate who is so willing to campaign on legalizing weed that, like, on stage at the debates they pull out a blunt and just start lighting up, and they start getting high on stage during the debate. That shit will win an election in a heartbeat.
Border along the Russian border to join NATO, and so it's a stronger organization.
Yep.
But we've got to demonstrate that we're prepared to continue to do our part. And I think that the vast majority of the members of the Congress, even among Republicans, think that. So I doubt whether the president's going to be able to walk away from those commitments.
You're going to be at the inauguration?
Of course I am. Only president ever to avoid an inauguration was the guy that's about to be inaugurated.
That's what I want to talk about, because he obviously did not make the transition easy for you, would be putting it as delicately as I can. You've made the transition smooth. You've invited him to the White House. How do you square that with his rhetoric, what he's done, what he's threatened, to invite him here, sit him in the Oval, smile? How do you do that, and why?
Well, because it's who we are as a nation. It's how we're supposed to be. The fact that he doesn't abide by the rules of the democracy we've established is not my concern. My job is to make a transition workable and available. and make sure. And he's beginning to adjust to it. He's beginning now to say to go background checks for his people and so on and so forth. The bottom line is that we can't keep this up. We can't keep up this childish game of walking away when you don't agree and not cooperating. Depending who you talk to, and I talk to a lot of Republicans, somewhere between, most people say 30% of the Republican Party is the MAGA Republicans now. And they are the Republican Party now. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens to the Republican Party if he tries to implement some of the things he said he was going to do. But it's important. The democratic institutions are consequential. We're the most unique nation in the world. Every other nations come about as a consequence of ethnicity, religion, geography. We're the only one built on an idea. The idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal, et cetera. We've never fully lived up to it. We've never walked away from it. And we have to keep in faith with that notion, even if the guy that's about to take office has a different view.
Let's talk about the media coverage of your presidency. We talked about all of.
Guys, I'm telling you, I'm honestly hoping Trump abolishes term limits at this point, so we can get Obama in 2028. Fuck it. I just want Obama to be president again. And then obviously Biden will be too old by then, but like if they can like Imperium of Man him into immortality, like get his brain and put it inside of like some kind of big walking fortress, I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that'd go pretty hard. We could elect President Giant Walking Fortress Biden, I think. Just Warhammer him into immortality. And we get President Biden again in 2032.
Of these accomplishments, but very rarely did you turn on the TV and hear about 16 million jobs. Very rarely did you hear about the Biden stock market up 50%.
Oh yeah, I forgot Futurama already did this joke. Shit.
From Trump. You aren't out there bragging about your stock market. I mean, the other guy would be doing that every day. Yours was up 50%, 55%. So what's your overall view of, I think, the media coverage? Do you think there's anything you could have done differently in interacting with them? What's your overall perspective on that? Were they too busy covering the horse race of politics?
My favorite thing was when Trump, about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, because Biden obviously was good for the economy, the stock market started to boom about 3 years ago. There's a big reason why the crypto scammers and the stock market bros have really taken off in the last 4 to 3 years, is because Biden has actually been extraordinary for the economy. And there's not been many points in U.S. history than now where someone could put a humble amount of money into the stock market and a year or two later pull out a sizable fortune. The stock market has genuinely grown that much in the last few years. Like it's why the stock bro stuff has gotten so big under Biden, is because there's been like a level of possible like gains to be made that hasn't been a thing before. And so, or not been a thing before in a long time. And so it's interesting that Trump, about 2 or 3 years ago, in response to the stock market explosion under Biden, claimed that the only reason the stock market was growing was because people thought that Trump was going to win in 2 years, and they were confident in the economy, and so they were buying, and they were holding. So even when he's not president, if the economy is doing well, Trump will claim it's because people think he's going to win. And so their confidence in the economy is already making it better. Like the thought of Trump winning is so good that it improves the economy, even when he's not president. That is literally the logic that Trump operated on for years of his campaign up until he won. Because there were a lot of things that he had to like make up a copium lie like that for, because Biden did a pretty damn good job. And sometimes he was confronted with that fact and he had to make up a response. And man, there you go. There's one of them.
Well, I think it's, you and your crew here would know much better than I would, but I think the media's changed drastically. Not bad or good, just changed in a fundamental way. When you read that only, something like 6-7% of people under the age of 25 read a newspaper to get their news, so on and so forth. It's technology is changing everything. And I think your guys are extremely successful because you speak to what is a truth. You say, this is what I think the facts are, and you lay it out. you speak to it. But it's hard to, there are very few editors anymore. There are very few editors saying you can't write that. Or you have billionaires buying.
It's crazy seeing Biden, the current president, recognize the same issue that I have. The overwhelmingly more popular independent media online has so little to actually no accountability. I think I'm one of the highest accountability content creators in the politics space, besides maybe a handful of other people. I feel like you guys will rip me a new one if I just tomorrow decided to start grifting and lying for money. You guys would crucify me, I think. I don't think my channel would survive, And that's a good thing, I would say. I mean, it's not good for my my career, I guess, and making a lot of money or whatever. But I think it's a good thing in terms of having a responsibility and also a consequence if I don't meet that responsibility. And that makes me, I would say, a better creator than many others. Right? We already know you're a well-paid shill for Monster. True, I am living on that Monster Energy money right now. No, the Monster Energy is living on my money right now, actually. So, with that said, though, I think it's actually a very good thing, and I like that that Biden's noticed that this space has very little accountability. In fact, the less accountability you have in this space, the more successful you're likely to be. If you're the type of person who has no reservations about lying, misrepresenting situations, clickbaiting immensely in order to get as much attention as possible, engaging in very rude and underhanded methods, these are things that will get you ahead online, but there are things that if you have any accountability, you wouldn't let yourself do and you wouldn't be allowed to get away with doing. And that's the thing about this internet space, is that there is none of that accountability, and the lack of it equals more success, and keeping yourself accountable is actually putting a weight around your neck and stymieing you from achieving greatness online in many cases, or at least it's harder. And it's a big problem, because as Biden himself pointed out, more Gen Z gets their news more from internet figures than they do from mainstream news. And that's a growing percentage among every other demographic. And so when the more people are getting their news from unaccountable, just random independent content creators than they are news stations and networks that can be sued for misreporting, it's a kind of a scary thing. He's right about that. There are no editors anymore. There's no accountability. There is no, hey, you can't say this. This isn't true. This doesn't line up with the fact check. You got to change this. There's no fact checker who's no, we got to report truthfully. It's all about making money in the internet space.
Standard newspapers that are well known and saying we're not going to do that anymore. We're not, because I don't want to do it. So I think it's going to take a while for this to sort out.
What are you working on right now that you hope to accomplish before the end of your term? Is there one thing that you're hoping to get done?
Well, there's a couple things I want to get done. And for example, we're in a situation right now where we should be providing for the funding to make a transition to deal with some of the issues that relate to women's issues. For example, women's health, dealing with issues relating to whether or not we're going to, we should be passing ERA. There's a consensus for it. We should be there's a lot of things we should be doing, but we just got to keep talking about them. I don't know that they'll get done before I leave, but I got a lot done in terms of dealing with issues relating to the urgent needs of the moment. For example, the idea that all those folks who were sent to jail for drug charges that have subsequently been fundamentally changed and lower, why should they still be in jail for the same charge? So there's a whole lot of things we're changing in the near term that will provide for greater equity and fairness. I want people to look at their government and say, my government's fair. My government's being fair. They're being decent. They're working in a way that benefits everybody. And so there's
Man, we didn't know how good we had it till we lost it. Y'all are gonna come to appreciate how good of a president Biden was in the coming 4 years. You may not be able to feel how much Biden has been healing the economy. It may not feel like the economy has been healing, but man, are you going to feel the difference when the economy starts hurting again under Trump. you are going to feel how much better Biden was doing than Trump. Don't know what you got till it's gone. Yep, we got memed, guys. We got memed and creamed. It's not like the editorial board on news companies is like we have a full duty to truth, they only care about access. I would say that's definitely true to an extent, but it's a world of difference, guys. Like, CNN and Fox misreport. They lie, misrepresent, and they've even been sued in the past for just defamation or slander. Many of these companies have. The difference is that it is far easier to sue these companies than it is to sue an individual. These networks typically have broadcasting agreements where there's a certain limit to what they can get away with before they're taken off the air. There's generally like Fox News tells some crazy lies, but can we all admit it's not as crazy as the average shit you hear on like a right-wing YouTube channel? The level of scrutiny and accountability is worlds apart from some million sub right-wing YouTuber guy sitting at his computer and making millions, influencing millions with right-wing politics, and Fox News. Like, Fox News would be stomped out way sooner than the crazy dude online who built his own following and has his own alternative like ways of like getting donations and making money. You know, even if YouTube shuts them down, they can run to some alternate platform. You know, like look at Tucker Carlson. He left Fox just so he could have an opportunity to get big as an internet figure because he'd have less restrictions. Now he's going to Russia and just being a full-on Putin dick rider. So yeah, it's crazy times we're in, but I do emphasize that like it is a world of difference between the accountability that your average like mainstream news station has and what the right online or just left or right wing independent influencers on the internet have. There is no punishment for lying as an independent influencer. In fact, there are motivations to do so. In order to please a audience that already exists, a pre-existing audience, attract them and get them to support you because they think you agree with them. Don't forget that this is the second time Putin has been to, or, you know, not Putin, Tucker. Yeah, Tucker has been to Russia twice now, and both times to do guided tours meant to, like, make Russia look good to Americans. Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this segment, please consider leaving a like and a comment. Thumbs up and comments are the best and freest way to support my channel, forcing YouTube to push my content in the algorithm. So to everyone who does that, thank you very, very much. It means a ton. Seriously, you're awesome for that. Subscribe and ring the bell icon on YouTube if you haven't already, so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos. Though let's be real, they won't tell you when I go live, but you should still do it anyway. And of course, if you want to see more from me on other platforms, you should follow my social medias, linked down below in the description as well, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord, and my Blue Sky. Hope to see you guys around there. It's super cool. And of course, finally, if you feel like supporting me directly, you want to help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless, though, of how you support me, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope you have a good one.